Before any official religious word was written, there existed a Jesus that nobody wants you to know about. For nearly 2,000 years, a manuscript called Pistis Sophia was deliberately hidden from the masses. And there's a frightening reason for that. It contains Jesus' teachings during 11 years after his resurrection, revealing that everything you've learned about Christian spirituality might just be the surface of something much deeper. What if I told you that Mary Magdalene, not Peter, was his most advanced disciple? What if Jesus' true purpose wasn't to found a religion, but to free the divine light imprisoned within you? This knowledge was systematically erased because it threatened the control of religious institutions. The truth is that you don't need intermediaries to access the divine, and that terrifies those who profit from your spiritual dependence. Just imagine a secret text hidden in the shadows of time, containing teachings from Jesus himself that the church never wanted you to know. Yeah, my friend, this isn't fiction. The Pistis Sophia really exists and is safely kept in the British Museum after being hidden for centuries in the sands of Egypt. This Gnostic manuscript, discovered only in the 17th century, is like that hidden letter revealing family secrets that no one had the courage to tell. True spirituality is often found in dark corners, away from the spotlight, waiting for an awakened mind to find it. And what's so special about this text? Well, just the words of Jesus himself during 11 years after his resurrection. That's right. While the Bible we know ends shortly after Christ resurrects, the Pistis Sophia tells us he stayed longer, teaching deep mysteries that only those truly ready could understand. It's like we've had access to a beginner's version of spiritual enlightenment, when an advanced course was available all along. The awakening of consciousness proposed by Jesus goes far beyond love thy neighbor. It reveals the cosmic structure of reality and our true place in it. Scholars of the occult know that this document presents a radically different Jesus than the one we hear about in Sunday services. Here, he isn't just the meek lamb who sacrifices himself. He's a cosmic master, an interdimensional guide, someone who understands the machinery of the universe and wants to help us escape a prison we don't even know we're in. Have you ever had that feeling that there's something bigger, deeper in spiritual life than what we've been told? It's no coincidence. Your soul recognizes truth when it finds it, even if your rational mind resists. What makes the Pistis Sophia so revolutionary is precisely its vision of Christianity. Forget temples, tithes, and hierarchies. The Jesus of this manuscript speaks of an inner path, of direct knowledge, gnosis that needs no intermediaries. It's like discovering that to talk to your best friend, you don't need to call their secretary to schedule an appointment. The direct line was available all along. The Gnosticism presented in this text doesn't see religion as a set of rules to be followed, but as a map for the liberation of the spirit. And let's be honest, who wouldn't prefer to be free rather than just obedient? But why was this text left out of the official Bible? Well, it's not hard to guess when you understand that power and control go hand in hand with institutionalized mysticism. Just imagine a Jesus who says you have divine power within you, that you don't need temples or priests to connect with the divine, who teaches that true spiritual energy comes from self-knowledge. What church could keep its flock controlled with that kind of message? The awakening that the Pistis Sophia proposes is in essence a call to spiritual autonomy and power. Systems rarely like autonomous people. It's almost as if there's been a plan to keep humanity spiritually asleep. Have you ever wondered why? Have you ever felt out of place in this world, as if something inside you knows you don't fully belong here? This feeling isn't madness or fantasy. It's your soul remembering its true origin, exactly as the Pistis Sophia teaches about the entity, called Sophia. At the heart of this Gnostic manuscript is a cosmic story that reflects our own spiritual journey. Sophia, whose name means wisdom, was a being of pure light that inhabited the higher realms of existence. In essence, she represents that divine part that exists in each of us, that spark of consciousness that yearns to return to the source of enlightenment. Gnosticism teaches us that, like Sophia, we are all beings of light temporarily separated from our origin, seeking the path back home. The narrative tells that Sophia, driven by a burning desire to know divine fullness, tried to ascend on her own, without proper guidance. It's like that anxious student who skips important steps to quickly reach advanced knowledge, only to discover they weren't prepared for what they'd find. This impulsive movement attracted the attention of forces that imprisoned her, dragging her into the lower densities of existence, a perfect metaphor for how our spiritual energy can become trapped when we seek shortcuts on the path of awakening consciousness. How many times in life haven't we done the same, seeking answers outside ourselves without the necessary inner preparation? Our desire for spiritual growth, when not balanced with wisdom, can lead us to dead ends. What makes this story so powerful is the journey of Sophia's 13 repentances after her fall. Each repentance represents a specific stage of reconnection with the light. The first is the recognition of separation, when we finally realize we've strayed from truth. The second deals with true lamentation, not self-pity, but honest sorrow for having gone astray. The third involves the genuine asking for help, abandoning the pride that keeps us separate. The following repentances address freeing oneself from illusions, abandoning false identities, dissolving fear, overcoming anger against those who imprisoned us, forgiving oneself, restoring spiritual vision, and finally the stages of reintegration with the divine source. The mysticism contained in these repentances reveals a practical map for our own liberation. When you feel stuck in repetitive mental patterns, you're in the first stage. When you begin to question limiting beliefs, you move to the fourth or fifth stage. When you forgive yourself for past mistakes, you reach the eighth. Can you identify which of these stages your own journey of spiritual awakening is at now? Sophia's fall to the lower realms symbolizes our own human condition. We are immortal souls temporarily forgetful of our divine nature, imprisoned in matter, limited by physical bodies and conditioned minds. Gnosticism doesn't see this as punishment, but as a cosmic drama of forgetting and remembering, of losing and recovering original consciousness. It's as if we're all in a game of temporary forgetting, where the ultimate goal is to awaken and remember who we really are. How many times have you felt that there's something more, something beyond this material existence that seems so real and, at the same time, so insufficient? That sensation is Sophia within you, crying out to be freed. The beauty of this narrative is that it doesn't end with the fall. Sophia's 13 repentances are, in fact, 13 stages of return to the light, 13 steps on the path of spiritual reintegration. Each cry she intones in the Pistis Sophia is a powerful call for reconnection with the source of divine energy, a map for the gradual awakening of sleeping consciousness. When you meditate, when you seek inner silence, when you question the truths imposed by the world, you are, without knowing it, participating in these same repentances, this same journey of return. The occult, in this sense, isn't something external to be feared, but the internal wisdom waiting to be rediscovered through your own process of awakening. And if Sophia's story is also your story, what does that mean for your life now? How many times has history been rewritten to silence those whose voices threatened established power? In Mary Magdalene's case, the Pistis Sophia reveals a truth that remained hidden for almost 2 millennia. She wasn't just another follower of Jesus, but his most perceptive and spiritually advanced disciple. The Gnostic manuscript portrays her as someone who understood the Master's deepest teachings, surpassing even the closest apostles, including Peter. A revelation that shakes the foundations of the patriarchal religious hierarchy we know today. Just imagine the impact of this revelation, a woman being the most capable interpreter of divine mysteries in a time and culture where the feminine was systematically relegated to the background. For those seeking the awakening of consciousness, this is a powerful reminder that spiritual enlightenment knows no gender, race, or social position. It flourishes where it finds fertile ground. In various passages of the Pistis Sophia, we see Mary Magdalene asking deep questions that the other disciples couldn't even formulate. While many got lost in superficial details, she went straight to the core of cosmic questions, demonstrating an extraordinary spiritual intuition that connected her directly with the highest truths of Gnosticism. It's like that person in a study group who asks such a profound question that everyone stops to reflect, perceiving dimensions they hadn't considered before. Her energy naturally tuned into the esoteric teachings Jesus shared, as if her spirit was already familiar with that knowledge at a level that transcended the intellectual. Have you ever met someone like that, who seems to intuitively understand complex spiritual concepts without needing lengthy explanations? People with this innate capacity for connection with universal mysticism are among us even today. One of the most revealing moments in the text occurs when Peter, clearly uncomfortable with Mary's elevated participation, tries to silence her. It's at this moment that we witness something extraordinary. Jesus openly defends Mary, rebuking Peter and affirming that she is blessed among women for her ability to truly see and understand. It's not just a casual defense, but a powerful declaration about the role of the feminine in the true spiritual path. How many times in our own awakening do we not allow external voices, represented by Peter's archetype, to try to silence our deeper intuition? Gnosticism teaches us that we should honor this inner voice, this Mary Magdalene who dwells in each of us, regardless of gender. This passage from the Pistis Sophia is revolutionary because it directly challenges the narrative that has been built around Christian spirituality. For centuries, we've been conditioned to believe that only men could lead the spiritual path, interpret sacred texts, and mediate the connection with the divine. But the manuscript reveals that, in Jesus' innermost circle, a woman was the one who best understood the teachings about illumination and higher consciousness. This isn't just a historical detail, it's a key to rethinking our entire approach to spirituality. How different would our relationship with the divine be if we had grown up knowing this truth? Mary Magdalene's figure in the Pistis Sophia represents the balance of sacred feminine and masculine that is fundamental to true spiritual awakening. She isn't placed above the other disciples, but recognized in her unique capacity to integrate esoteric knowledge with compassion and intuitive wisdom. This balance between the rational, traditionally associated with the masculine, and the intuitive, traditionally associated with the feminine, is essential for anyone seeking gnosis, the direct knowledge that transcends books and doctrines. Observe your own spiritual journey. Are you honoring both the Peter aspect, structure, method, discipline, and the Mary aspect, intuition, fluidity, direct perception, in your path? The occult has always taught that this integration is necessary. What makes this revelation even more powerful is realizing that this knowledge was deliberately suppressed. It wasn't by chance that the medieval church transformed Mary Magdalene. From visionary disciple to repentant prostitute, this distortion perfectly served to eliminate the threat she represented to patriarchal religious power. Reducing a spiritual master to an example of sin and redemption removed her power as a legitimate interpreter of Jesus' teachings. But the Pistis Sophia preserved this truth, keeping it like a seed that would eventually sprout when the soil of collective consciousness was ready. And isn't that exactly what we're experiencing now, a time of rediscoveries of ancient truths that can guide us to a new level of energy and spiritual understanding? The message is clear for those with eyes to see. The path of enlightenment has always been open to all. True spirituality was never meant to be monopolized by an exclusively male priestly class. And if Mary Magdalene could understand the deepest mysteries that Jesus taught after his resurrection, then each of us, regardless of who we are, can directly access this same transformative knowledge. The awakening of consciousness she experienced is available to any soul that sincerely seeks truth beyond the veils of illusion. Wouldn't Mary Magdalene be the true heir to Jesus' esoteric tradition, the one who truly understood the essence of the Gnosticism he taught? Have you ever stopped to think that this three-dimensional world we call reality might be just a small fraction of something much vaster and more complex? The Pistis Sophia presents one of the most fascinating and detailed descriptions of the cosmos' structure, revealing that the universe is infinitely deeper and more multidimensional than our physical senses can capture. This Gnostic cosmology isn't mere speculation or fantasy. It's a precise map of the energetic realms that the soul traverses in its journey of awakening, reflecting with surprising accuracy what many mystics and practitioners of deep meditation experience to this day. For those seeking authentic spirituality, understanding this cosmic structure is like receiving the map of an unknown territory that nevertheless your soul has always known existed. The occult, after all, is merely what lies beyond the reach of our physical eyes, not beyond the capacity of our expanded perception. At the center of this cosmic map is the concept of eons, not simple periods of time, but true dimensions or planes of existence, each vibrating at different frequencies and governed by their own laws. Imagine the eons as concentric layers of reality, each more subtle and luminous as it approaches the divine source, each containing forms of consciousness appropriate to its vibrational level. It's like an immense cosmic building with infinite floors, where the ground floor represents the dense material world, and the highest floor contains the pure light of primordial creation. Gnosticism teaches that our soul, in its journey of return, needs to ascend through these levels, remembering its true nature as it rises. When we practice deep meditation or expand our consciousness through authentic spiritual practices, are we actually tuning into these higher eons? According to the Pistis Sophia, between these eons and the physical world are portals or passages guarded by entities called archons. These aren't mythological or superstitious figures, but representations of real cosmic forces that act as guardians of the thresholds between different states of consciousness. Some interpret the archons as aspects of our own psyche, mental patterns, limiting beliefs, ancestral fears and conditionings that fiercely resist when we try to transcend them. Others see them as independent forces that administer the matrix of physical reality. Either way, spiritual awakening invariably involves encountering and transcending these guardians. Have you noticed how new fears and resistances arise exactly when you're about to make a leap in your spiritual growth? This isn't coincidence, but part of the cosmic structure described in Gnostic mysticism. The most fascinating aspect of this cosmology is that to cross these portals guarded by archons, the soul doesn't need power or strength. It needs knowledge, not just any knowledge, but gnosis, the direct experiential knowing that transcends intellect and emerges from internal awakening. The Pistis Sophia describes that each portal requires a vibrational password, a specific state of consciousness that allows its crossing. It's not difficult to relate this to deep meditative states, where certain insights only emerge when we reach certain levels of mental quietude. In practice, this means that spiritual growth doesn't depend on accumulating information, but on transforming your state of being, a change in energy frequency that naturally opens doors previously invisible. Have you ever experienced moments when a sudden understanding completely changed your perception about some aspect of life? That's gnosis in action, opening a portal to a higher level of consciousness. The Gnostic text is clear in stating that the greatest obstacle for the soul isn't sin in the moralistic sense, but the spiritual ignorance that keeps us trapped in cycles of suffering. It's the not knowing who we really are, the forgetting of our divine origin that keeps us imprisoned in the lower levels of the eons. This view completely revolutionizes the concept of salvation. We don't need to be saved from a sinful nature, but awakened from a deep existential sleep that makes us believe we are merely limited material beings. The awakening of consciousness, in this sense, is literally remembering our true identity and cosmic purpose. When you practice sincere self-inquiry, asking, "Who am I really?" you're initiating the awakening process described in the Pistis Sophia almost 2 millennia ago. One of the deepest teachings of this cosmology is that the universe isn't random or chaotic. It's structured in levels that reflect states of consciousness, and these levels exist both macrocosmically in the external universe and microcosmically within each being. As the law of one teaches, as above, so below, as within, so without. The eons, portals, and archons aren't just out there in some abstract realm. They exist within our own psyche as layers of perception that we can traverse through genuine spiritual work. This is the essence of practical Gnosticism, recognizing that the external journey of return to the source is, in fact, an internal journey of rediscovery of our essential being. Each practice of deep meditation, each transformative insight, each dissolution of a limiting pattern is, in essence, the crossing of a cosmic portal. What do you think would happen if you began to see your internal struggles not as psychological problems, but as encounters with threshold guardians testing your readiness to ascend in the scale of enlightenment? The Pistis Sophia presents us with a perspective that rarely reaches pulpits and Sunday schools. Jesus didn't come to found an institutionalized religion, but to reveal the path of liberation for the divine spark imprisoned in each human being. This Gnostic vision of Christ is radically different from that presented by traditional churches, and here, he isn't an external savior who rescues us through his sacrifice, but an enlightened guide who came to show the path of self-knowledge and self-liberation through gnosis. This understanding completely transforms our relationship with spirituality, transferring power from the priest to the sincere seeker, from the external temple to the inner temple of awakened consciousness. The occult has always guarded this truth, waiting for the moment when humanity would be ready to receive it. According to the manuscript, after his resurrection, Jesus remained with his disciples for 11 years, revealing profound knowledge about the structure of the cosmos, the nature of the soul, and the paths of return to the divine source. These teachings weren't intended for the multitudes, but for the few who were ready to understand and apply this transformative knowledge. It's like a university professor who offers an advanced course only to students who already master the fundamentals. The Gnosticism that Jesus teaches in the Pistis Sophia doesn't contradict his public teachings, but deepens them to levels that require special preparation of consciousness. Have you noticed how certain spiritual teachings only make sense when you reach a certain level of inner understanding? That's exactly what the text describes. There are truths that only reveal themselves when the light of consciousness is prepared to receive them. One of the most revolutionary aspects of this vision is that the Jesus of the Pistis Sophia repeatedly emphasizes that true salvation doesn't come through rituals, sacraments, or blind obedience to dogmas, but through the awakening of sleeping consciousness. He teaches that each human being contains a spark of the original divine light, temporarily forgotten of its essential nature while inhabiting the physical body. The purpose of spiritual life isn't to please an external divinity, but to reactivate this spark, nurturing it until it illuminates the individual's entire existence. Think about how many religious practices focus on external behaviors, when true mysticism has always pointed to internal transformation. It's not what you do, but the state of being from which you act that determines your level of spiritual enlightenment. Have you ever experienced moments of deep clarity where you suddenly understood something, not just with your intellect, but with your entire being? The Gnostic Jesus calls this experience knowing with the heart. It's authentic gnosis, the direct knowledge that transcends books and theories. In the Pistis Sophia, Jesus doesn't ask for blind faith, but encourages the direct experience of truth. He guides his disciples through meditative practices, teaching them to recognize and transcend the veils of illusion that separate human consciousness from its divine source. The spiritual energy he shares isn't something to be venerated from a distance, but a living presence to be experienced at the center of one's own being. The Gnosticism presented in the text isn't an abstract philosophy, but a practical path of transformation. You can read all the sacred scriptures in the world, but without the direct experience of the inner light, you'll remain only theoretically informed, not spiritually transformed. When was the last time you sought inner silence to find answers, instead of looking for them in external sources of authority? Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this message for religious institutions is the affirmation that the divine doesn't need intermediaries. The Jesus of the Pistis Sophia teaches that each human being has direct access to the light, provided they awaken to this possibility through sincere self-knowledge. Clerical hierarchies, elaborate systems of rituals, and structures of religious power become not just unnecessary, but potentially obstructive when transformed into ends in themselves. Imagine building an incredible infrastructure of roads and bridges, but never allowing people to actually reach the destination. Isn't that what many religious traditions have become? The spiritual awakening that the text proposes is radically democratic, available to anyone who seeks with sincerity, regardless of their social position, gender, or formal education. This is one of the reasons why the Pistis Sophia was deliberately excluded from the biblical canon. Its potential to spiritually empower individuals directly threatened institutional control over religious experience. The ecclesiastical authorities of early Christianity quickly realized that a religion based on the direct experience of the divine would be much more difficult to control than one based on priestly mediation and obedience to dogmas. How different would our world be if Gnosticism had become the mainstream of Christianity instead of being relegated to the margins as heresy? How many people in our society lived lives of quiet spiritual despair because they were taught to seek outside what can only be found within? The central message of the Gnostic Jesus in the Pistis Sophia is that salvation isn't something to be granted by an external authority, but a reality to be awakened through one's own consciousness. The divine light isn't millions of miles away, in some abstract heaven. It's present here and now at the center of your being, waiting to be recognized and released. The veil that separates us from the divine isn't physical, but a pattern of conditioned perception that can be transcended through true self-knowledge. When you free yourself from the limitations of conditioned identity and recognize your essential nature as pure consciousness, salvation is no longer a distant theological concept, but a living and immediate experience. This is the spiritual enlightenment that the Gnostic Christ came to awaken in each heart that's ready to receive it. The question that remains is, are you ready to abandon the safety of prefabricated answers and embark on the transformative journey of awakening consciousness that the true Jesus came to teach? So, what are you going to do with this knowledge that few have access to? The Pistis Sophia isn't just a historical document, it's a map for your own spiritual liberation. Will you continue passively accepting the diluted versions of spirituality that keep you dependent on external authorities? Or will you take control of your own awakening, recognizing the divine spark that has always been within you? Think about it. What if everything you need to transform your reality is already inside, you just waiting to be activated? What if the true Jesus never wanted followers, but awakened companions who understood their own divine nature? The moment to awaken is now. We're not sharing this knowledge for you to just accumulate more information, but to provoke a revolution in your consciousness. How would your life be if you lived from this Gnostic understanding every day? If this content touched something deep in you, don't let that seed die. Subscribe now to the Illuminately channel and turn on notifications. The journey of awakening is continuous, and we have much more hidden knowledge to share with those who are ready to see beyond the veil. Truth waits for no one, but it's always available to those who have the courage to seek it.